the anxiety stimulates us. Anxiety stimulates us. And so I was literally had a gas tank of anxiety coursing through me all the time, and stress hormones coursing through me all the time.
Hello, and welcome back to the podcast Biz on the Brain with your host, me, Anne-Marie, where we talk about anything and everything around being your most authentic self, how to be unapologetically you, what that even means to be yourself, how do you figure that out, how do you unlearn all of that stuff. And my current season on this podcast is all about talking to manifestors of the human design, of which I am one, and we are like the rare type of like 9% of people having this type. And what it means is just that you are here to kickstart things, so you are here to polarize people and kind of trigger them into some sort of change that is beyond your initial like urge that keeps you making new things, starting new stuff, coming up with new ideas, and just firing people up in that way for them then to just continue that journey in a short summary of that. And in this episode specifically, I'm talking to Mallory Kiersten, who is about self-love and how that manifests and exactly how you arrive with that and how you keep working at it, because we're all very much focused on self-love and self-development. It's become like a trend, but what does it actually mean beyond just bubble baths? How do you actually figure that out? How to keep being true to yourself and having a trusted person by your side to hold that space while you are figuring it out and while you keep growing? Because it's an ever-evolving thing. It will never be completely done, right? Because you're a fascinating three-dimensional human being. And so that is really, really interesting to talk about a lot of these different things and how they manifest with fellow manifestor Mallory. So without further ado, let's just dive right in. Hello. Welcome to the podcast. This is our second try to do this. And then the Skype calls are not in our favors, but we do it anyway because we're manifestors and we make stuff happen. And so welcome. And thank you for your patience. And thank you for all the struggles for like tech stuff. And now we're here. And so quickly introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, I'm Mallory Kiersten, and I'm a self-love and Unstuck Yourself coach. And I help recovering people pleasers reclaim their pleasure and start living life for themselves again.
I very much relate to all of this because I am through the trenches as well of being the biggest people pleaser, and then just that not really being very rewarding and fulfilling and sustainable. Having the very low lows from that, and then just being like, F it, I'm just going to move around the world and do my own thing, and realize that that's a manifested thing, and then figured out there's human design and looked into that, and now we're here. And I love just talking to other manifestors because for me it's still pretty fresh and pretty new, and we're like rare with our 9% of the population. And so it's so cool to meet other people who are also like more leaning towards it and embracing it, and also are already making changes with people in the world. And I love that. What made you like start on this journey?
I mean, I found out I was a manifestor something like 5 years ago, and I didn't want to believe it. I just had a lot of people in my sphere who were doing human design, and I was like, "Ooh, what is this new thing that everybody's talking about?" And it's so not a new thing, but and I just didn't want to believe it. It seemed like the worst lot in life to be a manifestor at the time.
I felt like reflectors might be even worse because like I still don't know what to do with the descriptions. Like, you wait a lunar cycle, like what? Do you get anything done ever?
Right, exactly. And we're a world that, just your worth is very much embedded in how much you can get done. And when I found out I was a manifestor and like how much rest I actually needed, and I'm splitting it too. So right now, because of the wait time that's necessary for me to like kind of know that like I'm a yes, the subtleness of the yes, I'm almost functioning like a reflector right now.
Same. Like I realized, like, you know, like with the pandemic, like a lot of people, it just slowed you down and made you just sit still and just reassess everything. And because before that, I was just traveling the world, being like high speed. I was focused on content creation. So it was daily generating stuff. It was burnout, like on the brink of burnout constantly. And I could never understand how I fared so badly in comparison to other people who just cruised and they were like, yeah, just turn on this blog post, this on all the platforms, doing this and outreaching here and that. And I was just like, what? Like, because I can do high volume stuff like in such a short amount of time. If I'm like fired up, I will forget to eat, sleep, and do anything. Like with my ADHD, if I'm hyper focused, I will do stuff. But then at some point, it just flipped, and I hated everything about it. I hated how I was treated, how I was just magnetizing all of these people who took advantage of my passion, and they were like, "So you shouldn't be paid for it," that kind of bullshit where people are like, oh, you do creative stuff and you actually enjoy it, so like if we're not gonna pay you, you have the experience and exposure. And I was like, F everything, hated. And so then the pandemic came in and I was like, okay, well, now that is my call, which I've been meaning to follow. Like I want to do something behind the scenes. I want to help other people not have to go through any of that, and I want to use my creativity more. And then I learned about human design, and then I learned I had ADHD. And so I realized, okay, I need rest. And I have a lot of needs that I've been completely neglecting. And so reacquainting myself with that obviously helped when being so slowed down and tied down. But it made me like overcorrect, like you usually do when you like do self-development, all of that, you need to like figure out. But I've always been a very extreme in my expression my entire life. So like I cannot do middle ground anyway. Like either I'm just resting fiercely, or like, with the hustle culture, like I still feel like I have to maximize the rest and make meditation like almost a chore. I'm like, you need to like sit still now, like for 10 minutes. You only have to 10 minutes to be like really like, like that's not rest. But then also I didn't realize how much just slowing down would completely slow me down. And with the spleen, for me, I felt it the most active when I was traveling, because I constantly had to reassess while I was just being like walking around like wide-eyed and like, oh my god, let's just follow this path, like let's just follow this person, and it would just fire. I'm like, good person, bad person, good person, let's go left, let's go right, let's just not eat that food. It's I was constantly doing the thing, and I had lessons where I didn't listen, and then I ended up on my face. And so I realized I have a good, really, because I'm also splaining, I have a very solid intuition, and most people never understood it. Then they ended up in trouble when they didn't listen to me. And I was like, oh, okay, empirically, I'm pretty good at this stuff, right? And so I really love that dynamics of it, but it also leads me to be not very restful. And I just like then feel like, oh, it could again be more content, could do more of this, I could do more of this, where I can't stop, where I'm just in this momentum, when I realize now is the time to stop, and I just can't make myself do it until I crash, and then I have to stop, or everything suddenly turns, and all of the beautiful things that have been happening just make me get into very bad situations, like accidents, or suddenly like all the clients leave all of it overnight, because I'm just like, what changed? Because I've been pushing. And so I don't know how to rest properly, but also how to not make rest be so overwhelming that it can't get back into gear, because I also have a defined route. So like I need to be physically moving all the time. And I think we talked about this, that you didn't know people who had a route but were manifestors as well. So like that's my thing.
I never met a manifestor with a defined route, I don't think. I'm really intrigued by that. And, I think this idea of rest, it's, I had a really preconceived notion that rest automatically means that we're laying in bed, eating chocolate, like that's what rest is. But what I found with rest is that it's just time to kind of like shut your brain off. So it doesn't actually matter what you're doing with that time.
Right.
It's just time to just kind of like, it's time for clarity. Like, I rest a lot when I'm walking around outside. The weather's starting to get really, really nice. Mm-hmm. And so when I'm walking around outside, it's like my brain is shut off, and I'm literally just very present in the moment, looking at the beautiful sky, or looking at the flowers, maybe petting a dog if there's somebody out walking their dog. it's anything that you do to get present. Like for me, sometimes rest is doing dishes because I'm being really present, and it's like almost meditative that, you know, I'm rinsing the stuff off. I'm feeling the suds in my hand. Like, it's folding laundry, you know, like all of those chores that people are like, ugh, I just don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. But for me, it's very meditative. It's very calming. And sometimes I actually do consider those things rest because it allows my brain to shut off. So.
No, I can relate to that too. Like sometimes I don't like chores, but sometimes when I'm like really in it, I can like rest as well. Like if you're just being really mindful, like anything could be also not a chore as such if you just make it more of a practice where you just feel things, like you connect with your senses instead of just like going through your mind. Like if you're just still ruminating in your mind, you're thinking about all of the things, and you could be lying in bed and watching stupid TV, but like you're still not resting. And so for me, sometimes rest is even me just going on a hike or like going traveling and just, or like drawing like idly or something. Just going on a walk. So I still have trouble kind of with the hustle culture in the back of my mind, just like what is rest and how do I not try to maximize it, which is like counterproductive. But I find, I don't know, the underlying guilt of it as well, you know, just generally like the generator conditioning where you have to be like passionate about it. And then once you're passionate about it, people expect you to keep consistently at it. And I just, no, like some days I just want to burn everything down and start something new. And it's so weird with people.
Yeah. Absolutely. For me, like TV a lot of the time actually isn't restful. Because I don't think it's a coincidence that they call it programming. You know, you see the commercials of, okay, now back to your regularly scheduled programming. Not necessarily because I think that there's somebody out there to get us with whatever we're being shown on TV. That's not what I'm saying. But you know, what I am saying is, like, if you're watching a drama, you know, it can kick off my brain into areas that it's no longer at rest. Now I'm feeling with the characters. Now I'm going on this journey with the characters, and, you know, and that's part of the point of, you know, any kind of artist, to give you something to escape into. But if it's not restful to me, I don't really like to watch it. So you'll catch me watching comedies, you'll catch me watching certain cartoons. Like that's usually what'll be my restful TV that I'll watch. Things that
familiar stuff, maybe even.
Maybe things from when I was a child, so my brain isn't working so hard to keep up with storylines or, you know, whatever. But mostly I like to laugh. That's what's restful TV for me.
Okay. No, I think it's really important also to be mindful of what to consume, you know, especially when you grow up. Like I grew up in the 90s, and so many of the movies that I consumed religiously, when I look at them now, I just can't, like the way women are treated and portrayed and like the typical like tropes. Like when I just look at them, I cannot suspend my disbelief of being like this being okay. Like this being just like, oh, but it's so romantic. I'm like, is it? I would just never talk to this main character do ever again. Like, and especially like, oh, I hate the one with the glasses. Like, oh, you just like have this ugly duckling take off the glasses. There, she's shiny.
Yeah.
And you're trying to insult me. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So,
because I'll tell you that I got contacts in high school, and it didn't make anybody go, oh my gosh, now you're so beautiful. It's like, it was nothing.
Yeah. No, for me, like I had a whole, like, I don't know, almost like breakdown when I got prescription for glasses. I was like, this is my social suicide. Goodbye, my life. I was very dramatic. I was like, oh my God, crying. I was like, no, I don't want to be even more of a nerd. Nothing changed. But it felt really like a death sentence to me. But I mean, just generally, like the way I keep having to remind myself because I'm a doom scroller. I always am like, oh yeah, now I've got time. But just like idly scroll, and I like to be more mindful of like what pops up, so it doesn't change my mood. But it always does. Even if I scroll past it, I already know what the video is going to be like. Oh yeah, this is a negative video. I don't want that. But like then it's still my brain just keeps latching on it, like imagining what it could have been, or like just, you know, how your brain likes to go for the negative instead of all of the positive. I'm just like, brain.
So it's something to be mindful of too, you know, especially if you have a lot of open centers.
Yes.
Like you're open to receiving in those areas, but if the stuff that you're receiving is filling you up with crap, like it's not helpful.
Yeah, it's true.
Not helpful in any way.
No, because like I like to be, you know, alone. Like I really like my company, and also I've really realized how much people can affect you, especially like the emotional center people. I'm like, damn, like, because I'm very receptive. Like I didn't realize how neutral I am most of the time. Like I have big emotions on my face. I don't know how to do poker face, but like when I talk to people, I'm just like, oh, really? What? You know, which is part of, I guess, like the ADHD masking that I've had all of my life, where I'm like, oh, you can't be neutral. So like, I'm just like, I don't know how to regulate that, so I'm always over the top. But when I'm by myself and I do like react to things, I'm just like this. And then in my head, I'm like, damn, that was good. I'm just like no reaction at all. Like it's crazy because like I did a few like react videos to things, and I just look back at them like there's no reaction. What the fuck? What do you do with these react videos? If there's no reaction, I'm just on neurospicy anyway. And so like when I'm with people, I'm like so different because I also have an open G center, so like I'm just this fluid chameleon person. Like I just am like hyper, like I feed off the energy, and then like I like to give it back amplified, and then I'm often left being drained. So it's really hard for me to actually have conversations that keep me going. I need that kind of play with people where they just don't just be like mesmerized or like, you know, just keep asking questions. Please don't like keep conversing. And so like it's really interesting when you become mindful of how people have maybe even defined head centers. So like they're very specific in the way they communicate, in the way they think about things, like almost like it's fact. I say it's fact, and then I'm here like, what do you mean? Everything is like debatable and just different perspectives and stuff like that, and that makes me feel dumb. Or like with the emotions, where I'm like, oh, they have this emotional roller coaster, and I feel it, and then I come back home, I'm like, oh, that wasn't mine. I need to give back that energy.
Yeah. And I was told, you know, by the person who was, you know, she practiced all of her readings and stuff on me for human design when she was first learning, you know, that the easiest thing that you can do to kind of discharge any extra energy that you may have taken on through all of those open centers is just lay down. Like you don't need to go to sleep. You don't need to take a nap, nothing like that. Mm-hmm. You're laying down to signal to your body to just like discharge all of that extra.
Okay.
And I found it to be incredibly helpful because I have an open root, and you know, so for me, the act of laying down, like particularly if I can lay down, I have a beautiful, soft, scrumptious rug on the floor of my room. So I'll usually lay down like on the floor. And
me too. I love that.
It'll literally just ground me so that I'm not so pretty from all of the other energy that I've taken on, especially after a social situation.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good tip. I like that. Yeah, I haven't done that lately. Like I realized how nice it is to just be like horizontal, like in the middle of the day where I'm just like, I'm just going to lie down, because I don't take naps because I can't shut off my brain, or I will just go into like crazy daydreams, like maladaptive daydreams or doom scrolling. I just cannot do the nap. But I need to lie down. And so, yeah, maybe I should do that again because I have a nice rug as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
And breath too. You know, breath really, really helps. Yeah. And, you know, it depends on, you know, what's going on for you. Like what type of breath will probably serve you. I know that when I'm, I don't like to use the word trigger lightly, but when I know that I'm entering a like fight, flight, freeze sort of response, my tendency is to go into flight or freeze. And so, when I'm feeling that way, it's like, I know that for a flight response, there are certain breathing tools that help bring me back so that I don't feel like I have to run away. So a simple breathing tool for that is like in for 4, out for 8, or box breathing, if you're familiar with it. And it just helps bring you down when things are feeling a little fritzy.
Yeah. That's also good. Yeah, I keep forgetting there's all of these different tools. And then I just get caught up in the moment, and then how you do like day to day, like when you just are just running around, you keep like, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this, and then maybe even my executive paralysis kicks in, and I'm like, I don't know what to do now. Like everything seems equally important, and then I get nothing done. And it's so easy to forget that there's all of these tools to like regulate your nervous system or like reset and ground yourself. Because for me, it's just like, I need to go outside. Like I need to go for a walk.
Movement, I think, is really, really helpful for more of like the fight response. And again, I just want to, I'm just telling you the things that work for me. Not a licensed psychotherapist or anything like that. So I just want to clarify that. The movement is also really, really helpful for fight or flight. Because if you're feeling like you want to punch somebody and you go on a really like vigorous walk, or you like lift some weights or something, that moves all that energy through your body. And the same thing with the flight, because you're literally walking away. So and then for freeze, for me, again, I spend a lot of time like under a weighted blanket. To your point earlier, when you have the expectations on you that you need to produce or do or whatever, I tend to go into freeze and then nothing gets done. So bringing myself back to my senses, so like having a weighted blanket is super helpful, because it like, okay, here's my body, here I am, you can feel your body again, and kind of just reorienting yourself to whatever space you're in. Okay, let me try to find 5 green things in the room, which is pretty easy because I have a bunch of plants in my room. But whatever it is, it doesn't matter the color. Okay, can I find 3 blue things? And it doesn't even really matter the number, but it's just, you're just reorienting yourself, to the space, and making your body a safe place to be again.
Yeah.
When you've reached overwhelm.
It's true. And I feel like with manifestors, it can be so easy to be either just so amped up that you want to release that energy because you've got this urge. But then if you don't actually go for it, it is this weird thing trapped in your body. Like I realized that when I'm like, the time is not right. Like I can't just drop my work right now. I need to finish this and then I can do the thing. And then it's just this vague energy fizzling in the background, but I can't not really tap into it anymore. It's especially with the spleen, it's like, it's now or it's gone. And then it just waits for another time. It's convenient. It's not like it doesn't care if it's convenient, for another time that it feels right, and we don't get to decide that at all because we don't know. We're just like the vessel almost, which I kind of hate. Like I like to be more in control, but that's also like an illusion anyway.
Yeah, fair enough. Control is an illusion. Nothing is, one of my mentors used to love to say, relax, nothing is under control.
Yes. It's
so
true.
I mean, yeah, if nothing's under control, might as well relax.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And usually things just somehow magically work out, especially, I don't know, if you just know, you're like, okay, what's the worst case? And then, we have this tendency to be so creative and all of the worst things that could possibly happen, thinking about all of that. But then you're like, yeah, okay, so what if that happens? What if we think about the opposite instead? Like, what's the coolest thing that could happen? And like invest our energy in that more, instead of the worst case, because like I'm very creative and very dramatic with that, and it scares me. Then I'm just like, again, like you're telling your nervous system all of these scenarios, and it doesn't really realize that that's not real. And so you get into these fight or flight again. I'm like, oh my god, why did I do it to myself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, particularly with, if you have an ADHD diagnosis, or even if you're not diagnosed, even if you're self-diagnosed, there tends to be a lot of extra sensitivity. And so it's just,
yep,
part of it to take extra care of ourselves. I mean, that's how I kind of got started on the whole self-love train. Is I realized, all of this energy that I supposedly had, all of this go that I thought that I had, which is why I thought it was so unfair. Like I thought I was a generator. I thought it was a big mistake because of how much I was doing. But it was literally because, the anxiety stimulates us. Anxiety stimulates us. And so I was literally had a gas tank of anxiety coursing through me all the time, and stress hormones coursing through me all the time. When I kind of finally started really actually learning how to take care of myself, because I think there's a lot out there that tries to tell us that self-care is only bubble baths, getting your hair done, going for a manicure or pedicure, like those types of things, those things that you can buy. Yeah. And, it's not those things. I love baths. I love baths so much, but I love baths because they're so helpful, similar to the weighted blanket of getting me back into my body. Like if you're using the time in your bathtub to answer emails, like you're probably not getting the most out of the experience. But if you're using it to maybe meditate, if you're using it actually as a time for rest, to like shut your brain off, then then it's rest. Then I consider it self-care. For me, it's all a part of it.
Yep.
It's all a part of the self-care game.
Right. And I think part of it is also just honoring yourself. And a lot of it is just to unlearn all of the things people put on you and society, parents, your school, whatever. I think that's the biggest part of why I love human design, because it just kind of reminds me of when I was a kid and, more unspoiled in my expression. And I was like, that is what I said and felt and did. And then people kept giving me opinions on that. And then I took that as facts, because I thought if they're so convincing and if they're so secure in their conviction of what I'm supposed to do and I'm not doing, then obviously I'm at fault here. And so that's how I morphed into the people pleasing, because I thought I couldn't even trust myself because people didn't give me that room for error, or like even that trust that I knew myself or I could actually figure out myself. It was always just like, no, we know better, we're the adults. Right. And yeah, I think any type has that, but just generally, it's just with the society honor. I never quite understood like how the society just loves the generator, but they expect manifestor qualities in people and workplaces, but then also you're being punished for it. Like it's this weird thing, like where people want you to show up regularly all the time, but not rock the boat, be like happy about giving that you have a job in the first place, that you're getting steady income, like you may be rising up the ladder, blah, blah, blah. And then you need to take initiative, but like not too much, like just in a way that the manager wants you. And then especially if you're a woman, you shouldn't really speak up because you're a bitch, right? So like there's all of these things. And people were always like, oh, you never take initiative, or you always take too much initiative. I was always the extreme. I'm like, you're always so quiet, or like, can't you just shut up? You're so loud. I'm like, what do you want from me? And I cannot, I could never really be happy in that way. And people always had an opinion on it. And so that was endlessly frustrating. And I never quite understood, like you had initiative, like innovative thinking, out of the box thinking in your job description. And here I come with like the wildest suggestions and constantly observing, like, this doesn't really go right, like, do you want my feedback? And they're like, oh, how dare you? I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean? So yeah, this is the weird thing with manifestors, because like they kind of want it, they kind of need it, but they need it to be controlled and harvested in the way that they see fit, which then makes you burned out and resentful and conditioned. I don't know. That's my take.
Yeah. I definitely could never imagine working for somebody else again, particularly for an hourly wage. I just feel like that's so, like, you're expected to show up for certain hours. You're expected to, clock in and all that kind of stuff. And it's just like, that doesn't allow me to, have the space that I need to get into the production space.
Yes.
Where, to your point, it's like, yeah, we can get a lot more done in a shorter amount of time than a lot of people, but that only works and that only happens when the rest of our time isn't accounted for, when we actually have the time to honor our rest.
Mm-hmm.
The expectation of you show up for these amount of hours, you get paid a certain amount for those hours. It just doesn't, I don't think it's is conducive to a manifestor, but I'm also not going to sit here and say that every manifestor out there needs to work for themselves and, because there are as many ways to go about life as there are people in the world. So it's really just about getting clear on what you desire and how, and going to like make that happen.
Right. And then communicating that like really upfront, because people pleaser. Yes. I always thought like I couldn't speak up for myself. Like I had to just take the job and the environment as it is. Like I didn't really know I could ask for like accommodations or like tell people like, this is how I work. Please honor it. Because, like even before I knew I had ADHD, I like sitting with my headphones on and just being totally immersed in the task because it takes me so long to get into the flow. But when I'm in the flow, do not talk to me. I'm like in zombie mode. I will like snap at you or like use all of my willpower to not rip your face off. Because like I'm very nice and very kind, but like don't interrupt me for especially nonsense. Like, oh, let's do some small talk chit chat. I'm like, oh, I hate it in the first place.
Chit chat, no way. I mean, it depends on the interruption because I do spend a lot of time with animals, and so sometimes the interruption is somebody wants to be cuddled and somebody wants to be pet. In which case,
it's kind of different.
Absolutely.
Than somebody like talking to you and expect, especially as a manifestor, like you have to like answer questions and you have to like the back and forth. I'm like, this is draining already. Like, get to the point. Like, what do you want? Like, do you just want to recharge and like have a break, which is fine, but you can't just make people have breaks. Like I had people constantly interrupt me for stupid dad jokes. I was like, how dare you? I was already being like super closely monitored by like my team leader who hated me. So, I was already like being under fire, and then they would be like, oh, you need to chill. I'm like, for what? So I can get into more trouble for not being like working at 200% while she's chilling, like traveling the world, and I run all the projects. No, Anyway, so like realizing that I can actually, it's okay for me to speak up and like be firm on it, or like, I can actually move myself, which I then did. I was like, you know what? Catch me never. I'm in Australia now, everybody. Bye. So like just having that kind of conviction that sure, it might not be convenient for people. They might not ever get it. I usually didn't get the urge anyway. I was like, why do I need to go to Australia? Like, why? Like, it makes no sense. Like, this seems weird. It seems like impractical. It seems expensive, like a big gamble, but like it felt right. And then it just was right. And so, realizing that it's okay to be contrary according to some people, if it's in line with who you are as a person or what you need. And you cannot expect people to understand. You can only communicate that. I still find it hard to like be at peace with that because, the people pleaser is strong in me. Just like, I want to be nice to everybody and I want to be perceived as nice and kind. But at some point, it becomes no longer nice or kind if it's just as at a detriment to yourself, and just hiding your persona and your needs isn't really of benefit to anybody other than people just using you. And I feel like that's also a manifestor thing, maybe just being I like trying to work with people, but also finding the balance between, okay, how am I still sovereign in my power and in charge of things, while also like releasing power so you can be collaborative with it, like, outsourcing things, being in a team. Where does it get too much of a compromise where you realize, oh yeah, I really like the project, I really want to kickstart it, but then suddenly you become working for somebody else's creative vision instead of your own urges. And then maybe even a jumping point is really hard to take, especially for me. Always like, oh, I really want to help these people, this project is great. And then I'm like in the middle, I'm like, wait, am I just like working for somebody else now? Like, did I just make this interesting? Like this thing that's interesting to me, think that is my urge, where, this kind of, I want to help other people, but I can't just give so much to me, so I don't actually honor my own urges. Yeah. What's your take on that?
Yeah. I remember it being a pretty life-changing aha moment for me, because I used to think that it was there being something wrong with me if I didn't want to finish what I started.
Oh yeah, same. Still grapple with that.
Yeah. So yeah, and I think that's where team comes in really handy is, we're meant to kind of start and or possibly come back and help finish up, but we're not necessarily meant to be there, for the day to day. That will drain the crap out of us.
Oh yeah.
But there are people who they don't want to be the one who gets the ball rolling, and they don't want to be the one that finishes up with all the details at the end. So it's like, we all need each other. We need all of the different types of humans in the world, because that's actually how stuff gets done. It's not placing all of the need on all the generators out there to do all of the things. No, we all work together, and it actually gets to be this really harmonious thing if we allow it to be.
Yeah, that's true. I find that is one part where I still find a lot of conditioning, like you said, like the guilt of not finishing, because sometimes I know all of these things that I want to start. Then I'm like, oh no, I don't have a team. Like now I don't even want to start it because I know I'm not going to finish, or if I finish, then it will be like 3 a.m. and then the next 2 days will be like horrible because I didn't get enough sleep. So it always bites me in the back. And I just see so many projects and I'm just like, oh, I have these ideas, like I could start you off with this, I could do this and could do this, and then people expect you to be like a consistent, I don't know, coach, mentor, or especially if it comes with content, they expect you to be suddenly a social media manager, and that in itself is all usually loaded with a ton of different roles that they just like to put in on one person, which is already horrible. Been there, done that, hate it.
And is different from social media managing. They are two separate jobs.
Exactly. And I just like to be the idea person. I always say, like, I'm the idea person. Like, you have all of these ideas, or you don't even have the idea, just want a goal. And I'm like, let me come in and dump all of the different ideas like that work in a holistic way for the marketing. So it's not just like, oh, I just like make up a unicorn story and it doesn't make any sense at all, just because I think it's cool. No, but like it's just like, okay, looking at the thing, looking at the brand, and looking at the goals and your audience, whatever, this is what I can come up with. All of these ideas. No, you don't want that. Okay, let's do these ideas. How about this? And then, with the different teams, you can spin it into something. And I'm like, so this is exactly how you need to do it. Do it. I don't want to do it. And so I find that point is for me the trickiest, because people are just, they like my energy, they like my ideas, and then they like to take it and then they leave. And then either they just drop it because suddenly I'm not there and they don't have the energy at all to do it, and they can't reconnect it. Instead of then hiring me, they go just like, oh yeah, it's not gonna, like, no, not now. Or then they maybe kind of not almost steal it, and then they just apply it and it doesn't make sense either way because I didn't actually understand it. Because again, I wasn't involved in the project. They just got some of the keywords and then they just spun it into something, because most of the marketing out there is just same. It's just the same. And I'm just like, here's a disruptive new different thought you could do for your content. They're like, no, we do it in-house. We've got the system. Like, I can see the system. You're just replicating the system. You look really boring to me. But okay, if you don't want me to start things, that's okay, you know. But for me, that's always like the crux where I'm like, how do I sell? I'm the idea Kickstarter initiator person to people. I don't know. I know there's people who do that, you know, but I haven't figured it out for me. People always just resonate with it and they like it, but they don't understand how to use it. And I'm like, yeah, you just hire me, then you'll do it.
Yeah.
You know, I can't explain to you how creativity works. You know, you just take something from nothing and then you make it happen and then you have it.
Yeah. I think like I personally love working with people long term.
Yeah.
You know, I think the difference is, you know, particularly with coaching, I love working with people long term because I like giving them the space. I love giving my clients the space to actually, the space that I always wish that I was granted to actually come into their yes. And the truth is that regardless of whatever energy type you are, we all need that space because we all are like souls housed in bodies, and our bodies need time to adjust to change. And our nervous systems need time to, you know, kind of move through the, you know, because our bodies literally signal any type of change is a threat and is a problem. Even when we know intellectually, like, this change is actually for the better. So we actually all need that space and we all need that time. And I think we're talking about two different industries here. But when it comes to my work one-on-one or my work in groups with people, that is about their transformation, that is about their healing, that is about their their freeing of themselves from the matrix, if we want to call it that. I love working with people over a long period of time. Like 6 months to a year. And then if they want to renew contracts after that and we want to work together even longer, great. But you know what? I actually have preferred that in creative endeavors as well, because it allows me a certain level of intimacy and connection with the person. When I'm creating content for another human, it's like having that time, having that space to really get to know them. Especially with all these, you know, open centers, it's like, oh, great, I can like channel this person and write as them. And I don't know, I personally love it. I love being the person long term.
Me too.
Not necessarily because I used to. Not necessarily in production that whole time, I think is the key differentiator.
Yeah, I agree. Because like I realized one of my biggest pet peeves, like, because I like to start things, but as you say, like we're constantly evolving and progressing. So I realized people constantly need that impetus and need that kind of research of energy that I usually bring to the call, or like that, you know, if you are stuck or if you just creatively stifle a little bit, you need that energy all the time. Like it just makes sense to have somebody at your side, to have the transformation observed and be held space for long term. Because I absolutely love that approach where I'm like, you know, with the transformation that you say, like I realize I can do that with my creativity. I've been doing like these self-portraits for a decade now, and I realized how much that personally changed me, how much it helped me grow my confidence, and how much it helped me visualize the parts of me that I didn't really see or acknowledge, because there's then physical proof, and I could lean more into that. I can lean into the playfulness of it and discover myself, and that goes in line with rebranding. And so many people just wait for this big thing to just like, oh yeah, now redo my website, now I redo that, and I'll do the photo shoot and stuff. But like you're constantly evolving as well, and you can't just wait until you have like the biggest clarity and suddenly you're a huge I don't know.
You're never finished.
Yeah,
you never reach the point where I'm finished. Now I can do this. No.
Right. So like I do like a long-term approach as well, because like you can still keep starting new things, new endeavors, and that's what I want to lean more towards. But and it can work with content as well, because like I said, a lot of brands just keep copying themselves or others or the trends instead of having like a new way. Like instead, like there's some cool brands that come up with like cool new angles and cool guerrilla marketing, where they're just like have these random things that are interactive and like, spark chatter online and stuff. That's really cool. But sometimes it's just like in the constant change and evaluation and reconnecting with people, having that outside in, like, I don't know, like I feel like that would be a really cool thing with Manifestors, where we could be like disruptive, but in a good way, where it's like, sure, you can have everything in the house, but like then you just keep having all the yes people because they don't want to be fired. And because you just are like, you become similar to the people you hang out with the most. So like, where does all of the new creative input come from if you keep having the same circles? I never understood that notion. But then they just go and hire an agency, and then another different agency and a different agency. And then I feel like the whole overall tendency is like, you just follow other people's lead, gets pressed onto you. And then that makes you unique, but it doesn't make you authentic, Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So you have a defined spleen, right? You're splenic?
So yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm a splenic. And so like that's for me the thing when people are like, especially in corporate, and they're like, oh yeah, just give me the proposal, give me all of the points, give me all of the things. And I'm like, we didn't talk. How would I know your business marketing, all of the goals, all of the strategic things, which I'm not a fan of. Like, that's not where I thrive. I thrive in the chaotic creative space. And with my spleen, I thrive the best when I actually talk to a person one-on-one, because like I'm 4'6", like I need a small circle. And if I talk to a person one-on-one, then I can see the ideas. Like they come hard and fast in the moment, but I can never tap into them when I'm like outside of that realm. Like it can like let it soak, but I need that connection first, and it needs to be a vibe. And then I can come up with proposals and really good ideas to actually work. But a lot of people don't resonate with that approach. They want like, I want to know exactly what you're proposing, how much it will be, what the time frame is. I'm like, you're giving me like anxiety over here. Like you want me to anticipate all of the things that I know nothing about. What do you want me to work with?
Yeah. The spleen, I use this kind of example because my partner is a manifesting generator. She's got a defined sacral. And she gets like a gut punch when something is an or an
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like she gets punched in the gut really, really hard with the yes or the no. And I find most of the sacral beings that I know function in that way. With like the splenic, it almost feels like you have maybe a little fairy kind of hanging out over your shoulder that's going tap, 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 like really lightly on your shoulder. So lightly a lot of the times that you're like, wait, what just happened? Exactly. Was that a yes? Was that a no? But then the fairy has already flown off and
no patience.
The fairy's already flown off. So you can't even double check with the fairy. Like there's no double checking. And so it's like when you're, again, it's like comes down to space, like needing the space to be that aware so that when that light little touch from your spleen is giving you a signal that you read it like right away. Yeah. And you make whatever adjustment you need to make. I am, following the spleen, following the yes. What I had an interesting thing with this last year because not last year, a little over a year and a half ago ish, when I decided to become an erotic blueprint coach, because I did not like enter the coaching industry to go be a sex coach. And to be perfectly honest, the way I talk about the blueprints really has more to do with, you know, pleasure in the body, nervous system regulation, self-care, and making your life pleasurable rather than the more intense sex stuff. Like, there are erotic blueprint coaches out there who can give all the tips in the world, all the sex tips, tools, and tricks in the world. But that's not really so much what I do. But anyway, I was really, really surprised when my spleen kind of like led me in that direction. And I said yes to it without fully knowing like the whole story of what I just told you about how pleasure actually helps to heal us, essentially, especially those of us who have been like really prone to people pleasing and bending over backwards for other people. And we put ourselves first, we put our pleasure first, life gets really good. We start living for us again instead of bending over backwards for other people.
Yeah, but at first it's also like very scary and feels super selfish, and has all of these jarring ripple effects because it's just this weird new thing. And of course your nervous system is like, wait, like we're leaving territory that is familiar, and we're not being so palatable to people anymore. They will have opinions, they will be not always kindly reacting because you suddenly have more boundaries or communicate things like, I didn't know that, maybe you should go back to like however I wanted you, but it also is the most eye-opening when you realize, oh, that is actually in a way a gift to be actually communicating openly. So you see people for who they are and they see you, and then you realize, oh, not a match. Like, I'm not about changing people. That's not on my business. Neither is theirs to change me. And so having that, like, that's why I'm all about authenticity, of being like, you get me full on. The first moment you met me, you just get all of me. And then people will like instantly let me know. They're like, whoa. Either it's like, so much, you're weird, or they're like, damn, I don't know what to do right now, but like, cool. Right? So like, to have that kind of polarizing effect, using it as a manifestor to your advantage, is so liberating. It still feels shocking to my system as well, where I'm like, this is so vulnerable to put yourself out there and to be like Anne Musk and like weird. But I just really want people to find my type of weird, so we can be weird together in our little group of weird, because everybody is different, everybody is fascinating, has all of these cool things, but not everybody is like that. I care about their type of flavor and weird. Yeah. So I think it's like really, really cool. I wish it was more, not even like socially acceptable, but more people would realize, especially the people pleasers, because it comes from like, for me, it came from like self-protection, preservation, and like having constantly been told that I'm not good enough, and so I need to be different, to be okay with not being liked and not being loved by everybody, because that's an illusion in the first place. But like loving yourself the most first and foremost, and being like, yeah, okay, everybody doesn't like me right now. That's bad. Like, still like me. Like, let's find the people who actually do give you the energy, who do give you the support. And for me, it started with complete strangers, and that was eye-opening, because they had nothing to like prove. They didn't have anything to manipulate me over, because they wouldn't get anything if I just had a chat on the bench and then left. Right. And so realizing that you are enough and you don't have to do anything, you don't have to be great even. I feel like that's one of the manifestor wounds. Like, we have so much potential, and that is like this pressure, like, what do I do with that? What does that even mean? Right?
Yeah.
So be okay with being bad at things, or mediocre, or you're like, whatever, just you.
Yeah. I had this story, again, when I first found out that I was a manifestor, I had this story that it meant that I had to go out and be big. So I'm 5'1" too. So like, theoretically, it's like, I was told that my message is like for the masses. And it's like, it's great. But what if my message for the masses was just simply like, love yourself?
Yeah.
What if the revolution is actually on a smaller level than necessarily going global? And, you know, I could totally go global. I mean, technically, you're on the other side of the world from me, so maybe I technically have gone global, you
Right.
know? Like, but, you know, I had this image in my head of what that meant to be, quote unquote, big. Like, do I have to be famous like Oprah? And you know what I mean? Like, or do I get to just be me? And sometimes I feel like that's the greatest revolution, is just being authentically ourselves in our lives is a pretty big revolution, particularly if you were a people pleaser the majority of your life.
Yes. And I think for me also, that was the biggest eye-opener, especially with the language around being manifested in human design. It's always like, you were the kings and queens, blah, blah, blah. You know, you're making a big change, blah, 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 ripple effect here and there. And it's just like, no pressure at all. Like, what does that even mean? But yeah, at the end of the day, first off, we don't get to decide what the urge is. And then we do not get to decide what people do with that once we act on it. Like, people don't necessarily like it. They will maybe will take, like, you follow the urge and it doesn't land at all. But the thing is, we don't get to decide what other people do and make with it and like how they resonate with it. We can't control people. And informing isn't, you know, manipulating people in a way that feels appropriate to you. But sometimes it's just, you showed up, you were yourself, and then that affected like one person. And maybe they never tell you. Maybe you will never know. And that is, again, none of your business. And usually what I've learned really about, you need to follow your urge. And that's very usually self-centered. It doesn't really have to be just like, I want to be a Mother Teresa. I want to like save all the children, whatever. Like, it doesn't have to be this big thing. It could just be like, I just want to move the country. Or I just want to leave this job. I just want to, I don't know, start this relationship, like, you know, simple things, or, you know, I just want to start a new hobby.
Right.
And it's okay to do that. You know, it's okay to follow your urge and your creativity, like whatever type, even, like, it's okay. And then it might have a ripple effect, it might have positive impact, but that's not necessarily what you go out to do in the first place. Your purpose, really, I guess, is just being yourself and happy. Because I think if you are creating a beautiful life and you are just a beacon of like, I'm actually content with everything, I'm happy, I'm like challenging myself, so I'm not like settling, and I just make this life my own and just enjoy it, like actually like live it in whatever way that works for people, because not everybody loves to go like big travel like I do. Some people just like cozy in their homes all the time and decorating, like, you know, the debate with feminism, stay-at-home mom or like career woman, like, you get whatever you want. You know. And so I think that is the biggest purpose and the biggest challenge, I guess, for people to accept. You don't have to do anything, you just have to be you and start with yourself first, because how else can you spread love if you don't really actually practice it on yourself first? You can still love other people without loving yourself fully, you know. It still can be healing, but it needs to also start somewhere. And yeah, I think that's, I guess, maybe the purpose of life is just like to actually live it. So whatever.
And I think that that's part of the process, is, you know, in loving ourselves, is loving others opens a door, but it doesn't necessarily walk us through the door of loving ourselves unless we're practicing that. Right. You know, I'll be honest that, you know, that's how my journey was, is like, I loved this other, like, there's this other human across from me that I totally love. And so I used that as sort of my gauge for, oh, I'm like being really mean to myself right now. Would I say that to this other person? What would I say instead to this other person?
Yeah.
Okay, now I can start saying that to myself. And then when we open up that practice of being really gentle with ourselves and being very loving with ourselves, then I think we fill ourselves up with so much love that we can love others even more fully.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily disagree with the idea that love starts with us and then filters out. But if it's not there right now, there's nothing wrong with you. But I would encourage people, anybody listening to this, if you're feeling that kind of emptiness in yourself, how would you speak to somebody that you love?
Right.
How would you speak to your, even if that somebody else that you love is like your dog, how would you speak to them? And then start speaking to yourself that way and let yourself be filled in that way.
Yeah, that was the biggest game changer for me when I got conscious of that, because I was so horrible. I was like the worst bully, all wrapped into one, like all of the mean voices that I've encountered in my life. I was just all of it together all the time in my head. And I have this constant monologue in my head. So like it was constant berating, constant like judging and so harsh. And there was like, how would you speak to your best friend? Would you ever say this to your best friend? Like, hell no. Would you say this to, your parents? Like, would you even say this to a stranger? I'm like, I would never. Like, that would be so mean. And then just realizing like, oh, so why am I so mean? There's like a gazillion reasons for that. But like at the end of the day, I made then that choice to be like mindful of how I speak. And when I didn't realize that I'm lending myself more compassion, and it was really uncomfortable to get to that transition, because first you have to be mindful, you have to catch yourself, and then you realize how often you actually chastise yourself and like give yourself all of these little cuts and wounds for what. And only then, like now I'm like talking to myself really nicely, like I'm cheering myself on, and like I shock people when I say it out loud. Like some people, they give you a compliment, and I'm like, yeah, that's right. People are like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, great. And they're like, wait, what? As if that's a bad thing. People are like shocked. And then, of course, like, oh, maybe you're like full of yourself, whatever. Like, oh, you look pretty. I'm like, yes, I put in a lot of work today. I look pretty. I'm like, wait, what? We're so conditioned, especially as women, to play it small and to be like humble and reject the compliments, but then you reject the sentiment as well. And so now I also realized how much I'm much more kinder and extending that out to other people, where I'm like, I don't have to like love everything about the person, but I can still give them encouragement and support in ways that work for them, or like I can like actually say the compliments out loud and not just think them in my head and be like, oh, if I say it out loud, would they react? Blah, blah, blah. I don't know how they react. I'm just going to say it because it's my truth. Like, you look great. I love your hair. Like, whatever, and then it just completely changed my life. Just the way I realized I talked to myself. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. And it also doesn't necessarily need to be that, to be like, yeah, I am totally rocking it today. Like, it could totally be that. But honestly, like, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, you look beautiful today. Thank you. Can be so revolutionary, right?
Oh, yeah.
And to piggyback off something that you said just a tiny bit ago is like, would you say that to your best friend? Would you say it to a stranger? A huge game changer for me was, would I even say this to my worst enemy?
Yeah.
And when I realized that there were things that I was saying to myself that I wouldn't even say to my worst enemy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was just like a huge aha. I wouldn't even say it to my worst enemy. So why the fuck am I saying it to myself?
Right.
The person that I genuinely desire to love the most. Why on earth am I saying that to myself?
Yep.
And I mean, I think it's just, a good reality check. Just if you're in a low mood and you kind of reflect back, okay, what am I thinking? What is the thought that's leading to this emotion? Is it stuff that you would say to your best friend? Is it stuff that you would say to a stranger? Is it stuff that you would say to your worst enemy? Like, legitimately, not just want to say it to them because you're mad at them, but like, would you legitimately shoot off a text message to this person or get face to face with this person to say that thing to them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. That is definitely a big change when you realize how toxic you're being to yourself. It's crazy. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love this. I love just being like mindful of your inner chatter and then just, your passions and urges and stuff like that. I think I guess that's like one thing that manifestors are here to do, just to open people's eyes to things and then maybe shock their system a little bit to spark that, I don't know, mindfulness and discussion. I feel like that's part of what it is, because we are so used to being on autopilot, especially if you're like generator conditioned, be consistent, just repeat everything every day the same way, where you just become so habitual in your way of expression that you just need a little bit of a shake up. Yeah. Is there anything you want to add that we didn't touch upon? Because I feel like that's like a nice little summary.
Yeah, I think we just kind of I think we kind of covered a lot today, actually.
We did.
I think I'm really, really good there.
Yeah. And where can people connect with you?
Yeah. So you can connect with me via my website, www.mallorykiersten.com. I'm also on Facebook, mallory.kiersten.888. And then I'm the Joy Goddess on Instagram and TikTok.
Nice. And all the links will be down below anyway, so you can click on them. All right. Well, that was super nice. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this discussion. And I hope people took something a little bit from it. Yeah. Just even if it's just a mindfulness about how you talk to yourself. I think that is just so important. I cannot stress that enough.
And if you want to dive deeper,
you
know where to find me.
Exactly. All right. So then thank you so much for being here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
You too. Bye.
And that wraps up this podcast episode. I hope you took a lot from it. As always, if you want to connect with Mallory or I, all of the links are down below in the show notes. And you can just share, you can get in touch with us to network, maybe even to work with us, obviously. And if you've got any ideas on things you want to share that resonated with you, or if you just want to share it on social media, that would be great because it can help us be seen more. This podcast is still fairly new and fairly small, so any kind of share and comment would be greatly appreciated. And if you are on Apple, then you can also rate it, which would be amazing. And with that, I'll leave you to it. I don't know if you heard that. I am getting really hungry. So my stomach told me, and I'm not gonna go make myself food. And that's it. All right. I wish you a fantastic week, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.